No, cut the music, stop. No, this is not an episode of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast. No, you're wrong. You were thinking this was episode 8. It is not. This is not an episode of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast. However, I am still Tim McMahon. Yes, that's my name, Tim McMahon. I am the host of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast, but this is not that. No. So normally each week on the Expanded Fandomverse podcast, I sit down and I talk to someone about their love of Star Wars. A complete stranger who's doing something interesting in their expression of fandom as it relates to Star Wars. But no, right now, this is not that. Well, what is this, you're asking? What's going on? Okay, so if you've been paying attention, last week on the Expanded Fandomverse podcast, I had Mr. Dan White back on the show. Dan was one of my very first guests, and then I've invited him back to play the part of Andy Rooney. If you watched 60 Minutes, you know Andy Rooney always used to come in at the end before he died, and he'd give his little opinion, a little 5-minute spiel. Humorous, curmudgeonly. Well, Dan is that same way. He's humorous and curmudgeonly, and I've invited him to come on the show and give his little 5-minute opinion each week. And he agreed, and it's going to be interesting going forward. I look forward to it. I hope you do too. Anyway, before he came on last week and gave his opinion about the new cast, we were talking about what his first bit should be about. I was all, hey man, do the cast. Talk about the cast. That's big news. And he was like, oh, I want to talk about the expanded universe. They just wiped that slate clean. Well, to me at that point, the expanded universe was old news. It had been around a week or so. So I said, okay, how about this? I'm a man of compromise. Here's what we're going to do. Dan, for the first time you're on the show, this first episode, this bit that we're going to call Chewing the Power Cables with Dan White, I said, hey, talk about the cast, because that's the biggest news of the week. And he said, okay, all right. But since you're so gung-ho about talking about the EU, the going away of our beloved expanded universe, let's just sit down and talk about it. Me and you, let's just sit down and chat. We'll record it, and we'll put it out there. Well, this was a great conversation, but it's not really what I do on the show. The show is more of like an interview, get to know new people. I already know Dan. You know, I don't know him in real life, never met the guy. Just we've been chatting online the last couple weeks. One of those Facebook friendship type things. So I said, anyway, let's just have a chat. We'll record it. We'll stick it out there, and we'll call it bonus content. Yes, this is the very first bonus content for the Expanded Fandomverse podcast. It's not an official episode. Nope. It is just bonus content. What you're going to get is about an hour or so of Dan and I just geeking out. Just two nerds talking Star Wars. We start off about the Expanded Universe news and how the Expanded Universe has been wiped clean. The slate has been wiped clean. They've changed what is canon, what is official. And, I'm babbling now. But anyway, if you like listening to me babble, great. You're kind of weird if you do. But if you like listening to two guys babble, well, then you're in for a treat. This is just me and Dan talking. And there you go. Enjoy it. It's there. It's for your enjoying and listening pleasure. You don't have to listen to it. You don't need to. But it's there. It's bonus content. My gift to you. So, here we go. Dan and I talking EU for about an hour. Oh, by the way, I usually try to keep this show a little clean, but, some F-bombs may have been dropped in this episode. Some language might have got a little blue. Topic matter, no, not so much. But some curse words, some things you couldn't say on TV. So be careful. Just letting you know. Anyway, here we go. Bonus content, Dan and I, EU. That's it. Thanks for tuning in.
I have a really bad feeling about this.
Oh, I forgot to mention. This sort of just starts in the middle of a conversation we were having, and then twice, I think, in the interview, the recording cuts out, and I come back and hit record again. But that's the reason this is bonus content. You know, it's extra, it's different, it's Unpolished. Not that the expanded Fandomverse podcast is anything close to polished. Punk rock. It's what someone called it once. I think of it more as basic cable. Anyway, just warning you. Jump in mid-conversation, and if the recording sounds like it jumps in and out a few times, that's because it does. So, again, remember, bonus content, not a real show. Enjoy.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
Do you watch Girls?
You know, I tried to watch it once, but like I said, everybody's horrible. Everybody's awful. I think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
I think
I have to admit it's my secret, what do they call it? A guilty pleasure?
Yeah, you love it.
I don't say love it, but I agree with you. All the characters are horrible.
Right.
In the first season, Adam Driver's character is horrible. But then as the season goes on, you realize, oh my God, he's really a nice guy, and she is the horrible one.
She's horrible.
It starts off like, oh, you feel bad for her because he's crappy to her. But he's not. He's just responding to her crappiness.
Yeah, I tried to watch a couple episodes, and because it's becoming this cultural phenomenon or whatever, and I couldn't get it. People in their 20s are just so intolerable most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
It just reminded me of being there, and I was like, oh God, just thinking that it's just a bunch of people that think that they know everything, and they're just
and their opinions matter to the world, and
they're all nihilists, and I don't know, it just fucking bored me.
Max von Sydow, you didn't mention Strange Brew.
I didn't mention Strange Brew. I didn't mention Minority Report.
Yeah.
I didn't mention what else has he been in? He's been in like everything.
Everything, yeah.
Well, he's like 90, so God bless him. He's done a lot of work.
I have the fear when they cast old guys. I had the same fear when they cast Christopher Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Is he gonna make it?
Well,
I hate the fact that there's two Dumbledores,
Yeah, that is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
That is kind of annoying. But it's the thing about Harry Potter's not Star Wars, and I feel like they're probably going to kill him off in the first. I think they're going to kill him off in the first episode.
I swear I read the rumor that he's only doing a voice, and so they're going to record all his lines, all his scenes at once.
Well, he wasn't at that famous photo, that round table.
Right.
People thought that was him at first, but it turned out it was actually Anthony Daniels.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he has a really imposing voice. He has that Vigo the Carpathian, thing he can do. I just think it's so ironic that like Ming the Merciless is in Star Wars now. How amazing is that?
That's great.
How amazing is that? Jeez.
And you think Anthony Daniels is replaceable?
Here's the thing about Anthony Daniels, and I really like his performances, but he's one of those guys that he didn't work on the Clone Wars TV show.
I thought he did.
No, that was not him. That was him in some episodes, but they had a replacement.
I want to check IMDb.
Let's do that. I believe it's a different person.
There is an official alternate C-3PO who, whenever they film commercials and stuff, he's the guy in the suit, and then Anthony Daniels overdubs the voice. He did the voice once for like some Disney kids show where I actually saw it. The kids try to break into Luke Skywalker Ranch, and of course 3PO is there, and stormtroopers are protecting the ranch, and this other guy, you could definitely tell it's not the same guy, voice wise.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. He's I hate to say it, but he has a real big reputation for being very hard to work with.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, he does, and he's him and Kenny Baker hate each other.
Yeah, I did know that.
So I mean, I think that the thing about him is if he's not going to play ball, he's set for life. He already knows his money's in the bank, and he's getting on in years, and maybe putting on that suit would be a little bit too much for him. Which I understand. I mean, these people are all pushing 60 and 70 now.
Yeah.
They gave us so much. They gave us so much, and to ask any more of them, I feel would be
Oh, my. Turn. Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. No, please don't get on.
All right, so bonus episode, expanded universe. We're just going to talk about the news. You want to go ahead and tell the people what the news was?
The news was really interesting. First of all, May the 4th be with you.
Oh, thank you. You too.
We are recording this on May the 4th, which is wonderful. The big news about the EU is that it's being shifted to an alternate universe within the Star Wars galaxy, meaning that the levels of canon, which we've been dealing with, A canon, B canon, C canon, there's no such thing as that anymore. There's the one canon, which will be accepted. That's the two trilogies and the third trilogy that's being made, the Clone Wars series, and anything made from this point on. From this point forward, any comic books and books will all be more unified. Whereas anything which took place outside of those medias before this point is now considered not to be canon officially. This is an official handing down that it's not canon. So it's kind of convoluted, but all that extra material will fall under the banner of the Star Wars Legends. It's going to be sort of like an alternate universe, sort of like the alternate worlds they have in DC Comics and Marvel Comics, which frankly I'm fine with. You know, it was a messy place. It was a messy house that needed to be cleaned up.
It was. When the EU got started 20 years ago in the early 90s, they really didn't plan things out. It was
right. I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh, sure.
Because the EU actually began with Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Oh, before that, the Marvel Comics.
Yes, so. Even that.
But let's call it modern EU.
Sure.
That started after
Thrawn Trilogy
and Dark Force. No, not Dark Force. Dark Empire comics.
Right.
They being the publishers, the creators, Lucasfilms, whoever they are, the people in charge.
People who held the licenses to the stories, such as Del Rey Books, Bantam Books, and Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah. They didn't plan things out. It was just like, here's the timeline. I'm going to write a novel, stick it here. Someone else will come along. Oh, there's a gap in the timeline. I'll write it here.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't an arc. It wasn't until later when they started planning out these 16 book storylines.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't plan things out. So that's why it was a mess. But it sort of righted itself as it went along, kind of.
Well, unlike Stan Lee in the 1960s, they didn't have one unifying force to keep track of everything.
Right.
Now, that should have been George Lucas, but he was not interested in expending his energy in that area of his creation.
Right.
He said, okay, do what you want. They would present things to him. He would read a rough draft. If, famously in the Thrawn Trilogy, Jorah C'baoth was originally going to be Obi-Wan's clone. And he said no. But it was more stuff like that. It was like little touches that he would have control of, but there was no unifying direction for the storyline, which caused a lot of problems.
Oh, and
people always want to talk. I mean, I have heard nothing but complaining about this EU thing, and I get it. You love the EU, but if you're gonna love the EU, you have to take the good with the bad. And like I said to you before, for every Thrawn trilogy, there's a Jedi Prince saga, and you need to accept that some of this stuff is real bad. Some of this stuff is real bad, and it just doesn't fit within. It doesn't fit within this this narrative.
Yes.
Which is fine.
Now, if I can go back, one of the things they were saying before this announcement was, we've built this team. Leland Chi, I can't think of who the other guys are. The keepers of the hologram at Lucasfilm.
Oh, right. He's been doing that for a while.
As they built a team, and they said, okay, we're gonna look at the canon and figure out what's what.
Right.
So this put a lot of people, myself included, in the frame of mind that they were going to say, they were going to go through every book and say, okay, this happened, this didn't. This happened, this didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original thought going around, and I was cool with that. I thought that would have been a good idea. Like, yes, Thrawn, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Jedi Prince, no, no, God, no.
Right.
But that, of course, didn't happen. They seem to have wiped the slate clean.
It's I think it was tough love. I think it was something that just needed to be done.
Yeah.
Because I want to walk into this new trilogy and be surprised.
Yes.
If I sit down to a new trilogy and some losers like the Yuzum Vogue show up, I'm going to be pissed off.
Right. I think they've said they've been very good. They've made it clear for quite a while now that the new trilogy is its own thing. It's not beholden to the EU.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I was okay with that idea. Maybe they could, do some retconning to make some of the better stories fit around the new trilogy.
Sure.
But no, they've wiped it all out.
Sure. That does not mean, that doesn't mean that some of these stories are not going to be mined. That was the word they used, right?
Exactly. Yes.
They're mining the EU, and I wouldn't be shocked if we keep going back to it because it's something we all love so much, but the Thrawn Trilogy. I would not be surprised if they all just got together and decided that, okay, something like the Thrawn Trilogy was okay, or something like that didn't necessarily directly affect the new trilogies, such as the Old Republic, which takes place 3,000 years before.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if something like that was reintroduced. But just like you have the Marvel movies, now you're dealing with, when you have the Marvel movie universe, or even like the New 52 for DC.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for everybody out there that doesn't know what the New 52 is, they decided that they were going to reboot the DC universe
For like the 10th time.
for like the 10th time, another freaking Crisis on Infinite whatevers, and they were going to just restart the entire publishing process with 52 new titles, where everybody is a brand new character. Batman is still Bruce Wayne, Superman is still Clark Kent, but it's starting from scratch, so new readers can get involved. And we have to accept that we are getting old, you and I, and our dollars are not going to be around forever. Star Wars is a business, it is an industry, and they need to make sure that it keeps going forever. So you need to reintroduce a new generation. Now, if that new generation needs to sit down and like pick up like all the Rogue Squadron and all the Tales of the Jedi and all the Yuzum Vogue shit and all that, that's a daunting task. But if you say to them, it's okay, start with episode 1, watch the Clone Wars, watch the next trilogy, watch Rebels, which we're making. Rebels is canon as well. Forgot to say that.
Yep.
And just start from here, and we're going to go forward. I don't think that's necessarily that bad a thing, because it doesn't take what we love away. It doesn't say Disney's not going to come to your house and burn all your books. They're not going to come and destroy every comic book and EU action figure you have.
Oh,
they're just going to say, oh yeah, I would be pissed. But you can still enjoy those things, but you have to accept that it's kind of an alternate Star Wars universe, like a what if,
Right. So one of the things I was confused when they first made the announcement, before I read the details, that it's just the movies we have, and this point forward is the new canon. I was under the impression that, like, okay, everything that takes place after Return of the Jedi, wipe that clean. Everything that takes place before, fine,
Right.
The Tales of the Jedi, the Dawn of the Jedi, stuff that takes place thousands of years before Luke Skywalker's time.
Right.
Does that really affect The new films, the sequels.
Well, most of it was done by Dark Horse,
Right.
so you'd have to deal with that kind of that creative issue.
Yeah. Well, Dark Horse has reprinted the old Marvel comics, so why couldn't
they have.
Marvel reprint the old Dark Horse?
I don't see a reason. Hell, there's going to be money in it.
Exactly.
If there's going to be money in it, I think that Disney is the good thing about Disney is they're going to give us more because we want more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if over the next couple years we get reprints of Tales of the Jedi, reprints of Dark Empire, and frankly, I think those DVDs and Blu-rays of the original trilogy are the
Non-special
theatrical
edition
releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are coming. I'm not worried anymore. I don't think that they're going to hold back anything because we'll buy it.
Yeah.
The market is going to play out in such a way that Star Wars is going to make a lot of people very, very rich. And how much should Disney buy this for?
4 point something billion.
Right.
With a B.
With a B. That's like more money than most people can imagine. So they need to make that money back. And if that means recycling some stuff or mining, if you will, I don't think that there's going to be much question. But they will have to do some cleaning of house, and some of the cleaning of house needs to be how clones were handled in the Dark Empire series,
Right.
or how clones were handled in the Thrawn Trilogy. Those things don't match up with what happened in the prequels because Lucas wasn't paying attention. So a lot of the stuff we actually talked about last time I was on your show, the inconsistencies, the plot holes,
Right.
they're going to be able to patch those up, which is nice to know.
I wonder when they say they're going to mine some of these stories. And there's okay, actually, let me back up. I have 2 points to make. First point is, I think through the next few years, until this new trilogy and the spin-off films are done, I think any new stories we get in this new expanded universe are not going to explore the characters the original trilogy characters too much. It might tell some stories that take place maybe during the original series or maybe take place during the sequel series, but I don't think they're going to flush out those characters the way the first expanded universe did. That's just my gut feeling, because they don't want to lie stuff down. They don't want to lay stuff down now and say, "Hey, this is the new canon," only to have a film come out 6 years from now that negates it.
Right.
That's my one thought. My second thought is, if they decide to write some stories about these characters that take place between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, that's a 30-year gap. They could fill in that gap with some new stories. And to go to your point of mining the original EU, what if they retold some of these stories we already know, but from a different point of view, to make them fit the new canon? Like, have the Thrawn trilogy retold, but make it fit. Do you think fans would think, okay, this is a good idea, or do they think, oh, this is crap, you're just making us buy the same story, but just
I don't know. I
differently?
think with Star Wars fans, we're the type of people that if you give us more, we might hate it, but we'll also like it.
Right.
Yeah,
We hate everything, but we love it.
We're gonna hate it, but we're also gonna buy it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I hated. I was not a big fan of Attack of the Clones, but I saw it like 4 times in the theater. So according to the dollar, it's a success. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would also disagree that some of the books they're putting out are all going to be new material, because there's a book coming out in November called Tarkin.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
story.
I forget what the name of the I forget what the name of the book was, but I was listening to another Star Wars podcast, and they were talking about a first-person Luke Skywalker book.
Really?
Have you heard of?
In first,
Yeah,
yeah, I know. There's a book coming out that tells Luke's story, but I didn't realize it was first person.
right. That'll make it the second first-person Star Wars novel ever,
Yeah,
along with I, Jedi.
right.
So
Oh, I have some
they-
kids' Jedi journals. It's Princess Leia's, dear diary. Today I
Yeah.
met the Emperor for the first time.
I
He's
was,
bad.
I was so nervous.
Yes.
I didn't know that. I didn't know about those.
Oh, those are kids' books. They don't count.
Well, apparently these are going to be, part of the new canon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be first person Luke and Tarkin. I don't know anything about it. Let me look at this. The press release from Del Rey says, in our second upcoming novel, created in collaboration with Lucasfilm Story Group, best-selling Star Wars veteran James Luceno
Hmm.
gives Tarkin the Darth Plagueis treatment, bringing a legendary character from A New Hope to full, fascinating life. That's pretty cool because Darth Plagueis was dynamite.
Right. Now with this new canon, they're saying so far it's the movies and Clone Wars and Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about stuff like, for example, the last episode of Clone Wars had Darth Bane. Yoda meets the ghost of Darth Bane.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So, is his whole
Well-
backstory gonna be different? Do we just assume it's the same? I mean,
Well, the comic book surrounding the rise of Darth Bane was garbage. The book trilogy surrounding Darth Bane was really good. It was it was one of my favorite Star Wars books I've ever read. Really, if you get to read Path of Destruction, it's awesome. It's an awesome book. But Darth Bane was actually mentioned in the novelization of Phantom Menace.
there you go.
So he is not elevated in canon in as much as novelizations have always been considered to be canon.
But
So that's
the new canon though. There's like a lot of things they've already
Yeah.
mined the EU. Like for example, who's that Jedi you hate? I want to say
oh
the guy
that
with
thing?
the
You
yellow tattoos on his face.
the Wolverine of the Jedi universe. What is his name?
I want to say Boss
Yeah, Quinlan Voss.
Voss. Thank you. Well, they mention him in is it Attack of the Clone? No, they mention him by name in Revenge of the Sith.
And he also appears in Clone Wars.
Right, there you go. So does all his other stories aren't official? I know.
No,
I'm being,
anything going forward.
Yeah.
Anything going forward which did not exist in the forums, which were presented in novelizations of the movies,
Yep.
the Clone Wars and Rebels, and novelizations and comic books moving forward from the time Disney
Yeah.
bought the farm. So all that comic book stuff with Quinlan Voss will no longer exist.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm just being nitpicky. It's just
Well, I mean, what else are we supposed to do?
the Boonta Eve pod race. Boonta Eve came from the Droids cartoon series. That's not canon anymore. Ah!
Right, but it was elevated.
Yeah, there you go.
Coruscant wasn't known as Coruscant until it existed in the Thrawn Trilogy.
Exactly. It's these little things that it's just knitting and picking at my brain, and I
Right.
know I should get over it. I have
Well,
no problem
Kashyyyk
with what
wasn't-
they've done, but it's just those little points are bugging me.
Right.
The
right.
big picture is not bothering me. It's the little points.
Well, the little points, I'm sure the little points are going to keep coming up.
Yeah.
And they're always going to be taking. It's not so much mining as it is Easter eggs for nerds.
Good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they have a Bothan character that looks the way that Bothans looked in the Thrawn trilogy,
Exactly.
sure, that'll be something that we get really excited about, you and me and the people who
Yeah.
know that. But as far as it being canon, there's never been a Bothan. in anything, you know?
Right.
What sure in Battlefronts, but like that super duper doesn't count.
I'm hoping to see some chists in the background of like a cantina or something.
Yeah, man, eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you're eventually going to see that. Of course, it's like the most boring alien you could possibly imagine.
Right.
But
Right. But just throw it out there for us.
right now, if I sat down in the movie theater and Benedict Cumberbatch walked on screen with blue skin and red eyes, and it was like the Thrawn trilogy, I would be, after having this announcement, I would be both excited and disappointed. I would be excited because I was watching a Star Wars movie, but I would be really, really disappointed because it would be material that I knew.
Yeah. And that's not going to happen.
I hope not, but I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
I want the reveals. If fucking Chewbacca gets squished by a moon in like, oh god, who thought that was a good idea? That is just, oh my god.
That's the only thing that could take out such an epic character. You
Oh
know?
my god.
If he was shot or shot down in the dogfight, no, that'd be just too lame. You need a moon to crush him.
A moon. It's crushed by a moon. He's a starship pilot. Leave.
Well, it's freaking Anakin's fault. So what about this idea? What if I'm gonna go back to Return of the Jedi and,
sure.
and the characters are all getting together in the war room and they're like talking to Lando and they're like, "Hey, how'd they figure out to pick you?" He's like, "Well, someone told them about the Battle of Tanab." Yeah.
Hmm?
So what if the characters are all getting together and like, "Hey, what have you been up to?" "Well, been doing pretty good since we took down that Thrawn guy, you know."
Yeah, that right there.
Just
that
enough.
would be totally cool.
Yeah.
How awesome would that be? Because then, just with that line, that would elevate the Thrawn trilogy to canon.
Yeah. There you go.
If they walked by like, I don't know, like a holo recording of him or whatever. I don't know. Do you think that Disney in association with what is it, Del Rey now? Del Rey. Do you think that Disney in association with Del Rey would be willing to republish the books?
I don't know. They did once already. It was a 25th annotated version of that book out with author's notes. So if they can make money, they'll do it. Disney is a corporation. They are not an independent little tiny company.
Right. They're not just people in mouse suits who are trying to make people happy. They keep people fed.
Yeah.
And as much as I think capitalism is out of control, there are worse things to do in the world than entertain people.
Yes.
So if they want to make money by making people happy, I do not have a problem with that. If they want to make money by giving me more Star Wars, I'm always going to pick and choose what I like. You know, the Ewok adventures will always be canon to me because I love them, and I don't care. I don't care who says what. Wilford Brimley is canon to me. Wilford Brimley will always be canon in Star Wars. Sindel and Mace will always be canon because that is what I choose, and that's a choice that we can all make as fans.
I love the idea of head canon. Everyone has their own canon in their head.
Exactly. At the same time, I don't accept the prequels. And that's
We've discussed that one before on the show.
That's my right as an individual. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Disney came out with an alternate version of those. Why not?
I wouldn't be upset.
Edit them differently.
Now, speaking of things you don't like,
sure.
A lot of fans were just, you and I are okay with this. We're taking it well, the erasure of the EU. But a lot of people are just downright pissed off. I mean,
I think those people need to get jobs. But moving right along. Yes, there's things. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I almost feel like I need a third voice on the show to explain this point of view because I don't get it. They're like, "Oh, I've read more than one comment that, I'm not going to see the new movies now." Like, yeah, right, buddy. Come on.
You're going to be if you're taking the time to write a comment, you're going to be standing in line just like all the rest of us.
Star Wars is dead, man. This isn't my Star Wars. I mean,
it's not anybody's Star Wars. It's everybody's Star Wars. Yeah, right. That's the wonderful part about it. Oh God, people are such goddamn babies. They really think that like they really are under the impression that Lucasfilm and Star Wars owes them something,
Mm-hmm.
and they're under the impression that Star Wars is somehow sacred. And yes, Star Wars is the modern mythology. It follows the monomyth and the hero's journey and all that. But ultimately, what Star Wars is it's entertainment. That's all it is. And if they are going to, how many times has Marvel Comics and DC Comics had to clean house on some of the inconsistencies that they've had over the years?
Yeah.
You know, they've had to do it over and over again. I remember back in the 1980s, there was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that was because DC Comics was buying up all these like small comic book companies. You know, they just, they bought Charleston and they bought Kitchen Sink Press and they bought like whoever had Captain Marvel, and they needed to unify all these characters into one setting. So they created an event which unified the universe. Now, if you let all these little corners of the EU galaxy still exist, some of them are contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them contradict. Some of them contradict things that are expected to be accepted as fact within the Star Wars galaxy. And I think this was a long time coming, and it's something that I absolutely welcome. I absolutely welcome it. If you want to sit down and read your books, or watch the Droids cartoon show, or I'll watch my Ewok adventures all alone, you can still do that. Nobody's destroying those. But if you really, really want to just totally reject Star Wars, you are. I was talking to this staunch feminist the other day, and she said that the reason she didn't watch The Dark Knight, the Batman movie, the reason she didn't watch that was because Christopher Nolan didn't put Harlequin in the movie. And I was like, well, why would you reject that? And she's like, oh, well, I really like Harlequin, and Harlequin is supposed to be the Joker's girlfriend. And I said to her, with absolute abject honesty, if the exclusion of something that you like is going to stop you from enjoying something, then you don't deserve the product that they made. You don't deserve it.
Yeah.
If losing the fucking Jedi Prince saga is going to get you so ass mad that you're going to miss Star Wars on the big screen, then buddy, fuck you. Stay home. I don't need you there. And frankly, I don't think that Disney is going to die because $10 is taken out of the pot.
Right.
I
think this just popped into my head that the Star Wars expanded universe was so big, and for all its inconsistencies, actually, I'm going to give it credit. I think it was pretty well done. When there were inconsistencies, they did retcon and fit things in when needed.
Sure.
But it's so big and has gone on for so long. Other than Marvel Comics, I can't think of someone else having such a fictional universe that is so big and has gone on so long without having to start over. I think people, like I said, it's been 20 years since the modern EU. And that's a whole generation. That's a whole bunch of people who grew up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of the whiners who were complaining when the prequels came out. The phrase was, George Lucas raped my childhood. It's that kind of frame of mind where
Right.
people love something so much and they've made it a part of themselves, and now it's quote unquote gone, which it's not. It's still on your bookshelves, people.
Right.
That's why they're angry, and that's my thought.
They can't take it away from you. Only you can take it away from you.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's all I can think of. I want to go to these angry people and just give them a hug in real life and go, it's going to be okay.
Who hurt
not your
you?
fault.
George Lucas didn't rape my childhood. My priest raped my childhood.
Oh,
This is it's such like immature whining that I mean, but what really else would you expect? Now, I am a Star Wars fan. I am a diehard Star Wars fan, and so are you.
Uh-huh.
But we are in the most entitled fandom I have ever seen in my life. People genuinely think because they, bought the toys and saw the movies, they're somehow entitled to something more.
Yeah.
And look, man, I hate the prequels. I don't accept them in my mind as Star Wars movies. They make me mad. But I don't think that I don't know. I don't think I really deserved better movies. I didn't do anything special with my life that, made me deserve something better. And sure, I went out and I bought the Thrawn Trilogy, The Heir to the Empire, the first day it came out. But I don't think that somehow they owe me anything more than entertainment. As you know, I'm a big time action figure collector. I love, love, love my action figures. And I hear on these forums people doing nothing but complaining constantly about Star Wars action figures, despite the fact that Hasbro is putting out action figures about a freaking movie that came out in the 70s. We're part of it. We're part of a very, very strange fandom that
I hate to say it, I think we could learn something from the Trekkie guys. They've never had a consistent expanded universe.
No.
I mean, everything contradicts.
Yeah. But the big difference between Star Trek and Star Wars is that alternate timelines are allowed in Star Trek. They always have been. But
even this, the J.J. Abrams reboot, I mean, all the... I used, I'll admit I went through a Star Trek phase. I'm not proud of it. I did.
Oh, no. I love Star Trek. I think that there's two types of fans in the world.
Yeah.
There's two types of fans. There's people who are fans of both Star Wars and Star Trek, and there's fans who don't fucking understand either. Because you can like vanilla and you can like chocolate.
Yep.
Or you know what? You probably just don't like ice cream and you're a fucking idiot.
Well,
I love Star Trek. Star Trek is cool.
This was a phase in the late 80s when I was in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
I was picking up Star Trek novels, and if I remember correctly, they would have like a banner, a subtitle, Star Trek something, and you'd get like 4, 5, 10 books under that banner, and that would be a storyline. And then you go on to another storyline, which again, you might get like 4, 5, 10 books, but it would not have anything to do with those other storylines. More than once, I've read a story of how humans and Vulcans first met. No consistency. Sure. No,
It was not... James Cromwell was not there the first time.
Yes. I mean, more than one story. That story's been written more than once, and they're all very extremely different.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek fans, they, take it. They're just happy to have the material, happy for a new story, these characters they love, and they move on. I don't hear them whining that, oh, no, First Contact negates all the books I've read as a child.
Because they have the open-mindedness to be more accepting of alternate universes and alternate timelines. Yeah. I don't want Darth Kyrat in my fucking Star Wars. I'm sorry. I don't want, what is it? Fucking Cade Skywalker? Like, what if Cable from X-Force was a Skywalker? Like, I don't need that shit. I don't need that. I don't like it. I hate the aesthetic. I hate the storylines. Like the super cool Mr. like badass biker Skywalker. Fuck that. Okay? I don't need it. I don't want it. You can have it. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't and that's the big difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. It's all alternate timelines and alternate universes, which were established with What was it? The door at the end of tomorrow? Is that it?
I'm thinking of Mirror Mirror, the episode, original series episode, the one with they all wore goatees because they were bad.
Yes,
Yeah.
because they were evil and there was evil Spock and stuff. But there was also that one where McCoy went crazy and like saved a girl, and that made the Nazis
Oh,
win World War II.
Yeah.
So timelines have always been flexible.
Fluid.
Yeah, they've always been fluid, malleable. Whereas
Bendy.
Lucas, they have been like a reed in the wind. Whereas Lucas made a very rigid proclamation that, okay, you don't talk about Yoda, and there are no timelines.
Yeah.
There's no alternate timelines. Now he's not in charge anymore. So we're gonna have alternate timelines. We're gonna have one timeline where Rogue Squadron and all that shit exists. You can enjoy it. But
Now,
if one of those characters shows up in the new trilogy, it's a special treat. You're not owed it.
do you think Lucasfilm, the new Lucasfilm story
Mm-hmm.
group, whoever, should have come up with a story that, a la the Star Trek films, wipes
Sure.
the slate clean, or do you think they're okay with like, all right, we're walking away, we're starting over, because the old EU really didn't have an end. I mean, going on about the Cade Skywalker and those stories, which were 100 some odd years after the movies that we already know.
Right.
Do you think they should have written a story that sort of like, whoa, big galactic event, and boom, everyone had their memory wiped,
We're like the
not just the droids.
we're like the Rataka Infinite Empire like
Yeah,
shows up and fights Darth Kryat. I don't know, man. I mean, I wouldn't. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if something like that eventually came up. Marvel Comics is going to be in charge of Star Wars comics from now on. And I think that the people who write for Marvel are smart enough, and they're smart enough to know when they have good characters that they're not using.
yeah,
I think that they're smart enough to like look at somebody like Douche Ramdar and say like we can not have him. But they're also smart enough to look at somebody like Darth Revan, and say like, oh, that's a cool character. Let's bring that in. But even something like that, if you played Knights of the Old Republic, how the fuck does that fit into canon? You choose how the story ends,
Right.
which is canon. That he's a good guy or a bad guy. Is he black? Is he white? Is he short, tall, a woman? Who is this?
yeah.
So complaining about, I don't get it. Maybe you do need a third party on this, because I think we're of one mind that I think it's just best left. I think it's best left in a bookshelf. As Indiana Jones put it belongs in a museum.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to keep trying to shoehorn it in. It just needs to be what it is. It was a good time. But
It was the best of times. It was the worst of
it
times.
was the worst of times. It really was.
I just want to go back to the new films one more time. The cast, as we talked about earlier, the cast was announced this week.
Yes.
There's that famous picture of everyone sitting in a circle at
Yes.
the read through.
Yes.
Now, supposedly, people are saying you can get an idea of who the characters are based on who they're sitting with.
Right. You can analyze it. Ooh.
So the young lady,
Daisy.
thank you,
Yep.
is sitting between Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
So
I think it's all obvious what's going on there.
Everyone's saying that's the daughter.
Sure.
So they had a daughter in the EU, Jaina Solo.
Sure.
What's your take there? Do you think, okay, this daughter will be named Jaina Solo, but she'll have a completely different storyline, whatever they want to do? Or do you think they should come up with a new name, like, I don't know, Mabel Solo, whatever?
You know what?
How would you feel if they called, okay, because you've said I don't want to walk in and see Thrawn, it's going to ruin it for me, but how would you feel if you walked in and they called her Jaina, but it's not the Jaina you know?
I wouldn't have a problem with it whatsoever.
Okay.
It wouldn't bother me at all. It's almost like, I know so much about this, but it's like I know so much about Star Wars, but going into the new trilogies, when I sit down in the theater, it's going to be like going on a date with somebody from OkCupid. You can read about it all you want, but until you're sitting there in front of it, you're not going to understand it.
Okay.
So I feel like if they call her Jaina, it's not going to bother me at all. It's not going to bother me at all because we already know Chewbacca's there. So what the fuck does that mean? You know, Chewbacca's not dead.
Yeah.
If they have a daughter, cool. I think I personally think that she's probably going to be the pivotal, the star of the movie.
Yeah. I hope that'd be awesome to see a female hero.
Yeah.
Put all those
we have
naysayers.
JJ who has that he has that background in what was that show he did? Was it Alias?
Alias, yep.
He's got he has a very strong female role background, which is good. You know, it's not the corniness that Josh Whedon has.
Right.
It's more of a grounded like serious thing. I'm so glad that they went with him over Joss. I love Joss for what he is, but
right.
I don't want that goofiness.
Right.
So a lot of people are talking about the lack of diversity in the cast. And I feel like we are going to be seeing Daisy really pick up the reins on this movie because even though she's the one woman, I don't think that's going to matter as long as she's strong.
Right.
It took me years to realize that Princess Leia was the only woman in the fucking galaxy in the OT. She's one of 3 women in the entire trilogy. And that did not even occur to me because she was such a strong presence because they focused on her. And it didn't really matter that she was a woman or not because she was just so strong. And I feel like if they give Daisy the reins and she knocks it out of the park, hell, that's going to be great.
And this is just the main cast. I mean, there's going to be other people in smaller roles.
Yes.
For all we know, they're all women. Yeah, so
that's true.
They go to a planet of Amazons, and it's, you know, could happen. Could happen. Just saying.
It really could. It really absolutely could. But as far as Star Wars, any consistency in Star Wars is, you've always had one strong female, and they've carried the thing. Yeah. You've had Natalie Portman, and she was the one female through a whole thread. You've had, you know, Carrie Fisher, one female through the whole thread. I don't think that they need to shoehorn anything into it to try to like satisfy people.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, if we kind of start to get that boardroom kind of diversity quota thing with Star Wars, it's going to piss me off.
Right.
You know?
And I think it wouldn't feel Star Wars-y. I mean, I hate to say it. I don't mean to be sexist, but Star Wars is always, like you said, it's been one woman and a couple of guys. This is the new Star Wars. They want that tone. They want that original feel. You got the one woman, and you got the couple of new guys.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of new guys, Dominal, I can't think of his last name, the skinny guy.
The Irish guy.
Irish guy, yep. So, redhead, young guy. Could he be Ben Skywalker?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I saw a picture of him the other day, and he looked a lot like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it made me scared. I don't know.
Wait, Mark Hamill look like Obi-Wan Kenobi, or
no. Dumb freaking DeLuise. Dumb Al Gleason.
Wait, so he looked like young Obi-Wan or old Obi-Wan? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
He looked like young Obi-Wan.
Oh, okay.
And there's been that rumor floating around that like Obi-Wan's grandson or daughter is going to show up. And that just made me so sad because like, ugh.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
It doesn't seem right. He came down so hard on Anakin for just like.
And if they're saying Clone Wars is canon, that Obi-Wan would never. I mean, yeah,
right? But he did have that relationship with that Mandalorian chick.
But it never went anywhere because he knew he couldn't. You know?
Okay, but did it because maybe he had the relationship when they were a young Padawan. I'm just speculating here.
Oh, my mind's going now.
Worried, right? This is how I'm worried. Like maybe Dom-El is his grandson.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. I think that, you know, Luke's probably going to have a son or daughter, and you know, Han and Leia are going to have a brood of whatever, and they're going to pass the torch on to the next generation. Um, I hope we get some people who aren't fucking Skywalkers in this.
Mm-hmm.
Can we please? Because I'm getting sick of these buttholes. I feel like the story of their story arc is getting to the next level. I mean, where can a new trilogy go at
Well,
this point?
I hate to steal stuff from another podcast, but
Sure.
I listened to Rebel Force Radio last week, and they were, just riffing on ideas.
Okay.
One of the ideas they had was in the EU, Luke rebuilds the Jedi, and they were of the opinion that Luke wouldn't do that. He or his father, whatever, brought balance to the Force.
Sure.
After the second Death Star, the plate was wiped clean.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more Jedi, no more Sith. It's just Luke. So why would he try to build up the Jedi? If you do that, you're out of balance again. If you're gonna build the Jedi, then you're just tempting a new Neo Sith to arrive.
That is a good point. That is a very, very good point they have. Yeah.
So they were of the opinion like the best thing for Luke would be go back to Tatooine, become a moisture farmer, just become a hermit like Obi-Wan was, stay out of the galactic picture,
I would love to see that.
And we wouldn't have kids because he'd be afraid of passing on this gift/curse to the next generation.
Almost like in a Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen type thing, how she
Yeah.
never wanted to pass on her awful line.
Exactly.
That would be, I would be totally on board with that. I would be totally on board with that.
And then they were just, again, speculating on story like, oh, some new non-Force related problem arises, be it a, whoever Adam Driver's playing as a bad guy, So they're like, oh, we got a new bad guy. Yeah, they need Luke's help. They go get Luke. I don't know.
Hold on. I'm just gonna grab my battery. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Good work, Commander.
All right.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Now, as much as thematically, I would feel that would work. I can't see it happen because I don't think that they would do a Star Wars movie without a lightsaber fight.
Well, we know Luke's in it, so there's gonna be a blade pop.
Sure, but if he's the only blade, you can't. You gotta have him clash, and you gotta have him do the thing, and I can't see that happen.
Good point.
I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And I would like to see it, but
they revive General Grievous. He was a non-Force using lightsaber wielder. There you go.
Ooh, there you go. Bring back that loser.
Yeah.
What the hell? I heard an interesting theory, and this I feel so bad because I can't cite the source. But he was just a dude on YouTube, and he was speculating about his idea of the new trilogy. And his idea was, what if there was an extragalactic force that started invading, the Star Wars galaxy, and it turned out that extragalactic force of like these glowing blue aliens, which started attacking things, started like attacking Jedis, and like the Jedis were disappearing. What if like all the Force ghosts came and attacked to bring balance? Because what do you do with the story arc, which is all basically, it's all about redemption.
Yes.
And the redemption story arc is over. If you go too far to the dark side, if you go too far to that, well, look what happens. You get a Death Star. You get an Empire. If you go too far to the other side, which is all about emotionless, loveless compromise, then you have a corrupt, bloated, bureaucratic system of a bunch of absolutely abject, useless monks who do nothing but settle tax disputes. And the more I think about it, and I look back at the prequel films, the things that make me mad about the prequel films, that the Jedis were not the Jedis I wanted them to be, maybe that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they weren't the Jedis I wanted them to be because they deserved to be destroyed. Because they had no balance.
Yep.
And Luke has that balance. He has the darkness within him, and he feels anger, but he's not accepting it as his motivating force.
Oh yeah. 100% with you there.
But being like, at the same time, being just like a bunch of like holier than thou people sitting in a boardroom, that's not any good either. Because what did they do about slavery?
Right. We've mentioned that before.
Right.
Check the archives, kids. Listen to Dan's last episode.
What did the child kidnappers do about slavery? Nothing. So were they really good? No, they weren't.
Now the point of this whole conversation was supposed to be the EU. So
I told you I ramble.
There you go. I'm okay with that. Maybe the new EU. Are we gonna call it that? That just doesn't seem right. New EU.
Well, they call it the New 52, right? Yeah. I mean, but it's not going to be the expanded universe. It's going to be just canon. It's just going to be Star Wars.
The one true canon.
The one true. Get the
one
tattoo.
One tandem to bind them within the night. Whatever the Lord of the Rings line is.
That's good. Yeah. Well, the Darth Maul comic book that's coming out is going to be canon.
Yeah.
The one that explores his story arc post Clone Wars.
Right, because the Clone Wars left him like
hanging.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, they left him like, "Oh, I have plans for you," and then that was it.
Yeah.
Poor guy. I liked him so much more in Clone Wars.
Oh, I agree with you there.
Oh God, he had such a better. Because he had a character, yeah. He had motivation. He wasn't just like a rabid dog on a chain.
Well, I remember discussing Phantom Menace with friends like the weekend it came out, and
right.
I brought up the point like the tone of the lightsaber fights. Yes, it just seems wrong. It seemed different. Yes, they're more acrobatic and crazy awesome. I was okay with that, but just something seemed wrong. And then my friend pointed out the fact, well, the previous lightsaber battles we've seen have been between people who know each other or have a connection, and there's an emotional level there.
Yeah.
But in Phantom Menace, this was just, like you said, a dog. Just he didn't know these guys. All he knew is he wanted to kill them.
Right.
And they
for what?
Right. And they knew he wanted to kill them, so they're not
because he was wearing black robes.
They weren't trying to like talk him down. They were just like, all right, bring it on. This is what we got to do. There was no emotion between the two. Other than, after Qui-Gon goes down and Obi-Wan like touches a bit of the dark side, I thought like,
sure,
yeah. But yeah, there wasn't that connection. Yeah.
Remember when Phantom Menace came out and Darth Maul was literally on everything? He was on every cereal box and every Coke machine, and he was like, "This is the big new bad guy. Oh my God,
yeah,
he looks so cool. He looks like a juggalo. Oh my God, this is amazing." But then like. He just went down like he went down like Boba Fett. He's one of those people that like he was so shoved in our face as like the next cool thing.
Yeah.
And then like he just died. Like what the heck? I felt so cheated.
I know we're supposed to be talking to you, but
yes.
Here's one of the things that on our previous discussion we talked about our problems with the prequels, but this is something I didn't bring up. The prequel trilogy did not feel like a trilogy to me. It was one film, then it was a duology, and then we have a trilogy.
Right.
It wasn't consistent. It wasn't one storyline, and so I hate to call it a trilogy. It's the prequels to me.
Right. It really is. It really is. It's like, have you heard of the machete? The machete way of watching? That's great. That's for anybody who doesn't know, the machete way of watching Star Wars is you watch A New Hope. And then you watch Empire Strikes Back, and then once you learn who Yoda is and you learn who Darth Vader is, that he's Luke's father, then you go back and watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and then you watch Return of the Jedi. So it has a redemptive story arc, and you get more out of it. And I think that's a really wonderful way to watch it.
Right.
Because it does have essentially it makes the two films a flashback.
Yep.
And And that's a nice change, because you miss out on a lot of the mistakes and missteps that were made in Phantom Menace, but you still get like a more complete story. Um, but anyway, yeah, that's fucking. Let's not talk about the prequels. I'm so tired.
I feel like I need to make a confession.
Sure.
I purchased 10 tickets to that first episode 1 in the first 4 days.
You didn't know.
I
You didn't
bought them all in
baby.
advance. Bought them all in advance. We had
Right.
my buddies and I. We had a whole weekend planned. You know, we started at the midnight show and then the 9 a.m. show the next day, and just boom, boom. You know, and we had some great conversations after like the third, fourth viewing. But then after that, we're like, oh man, we got to go back. Well, the pod race is fun. Yeah. Lightsaber battles were cool. Yeah. It just...
And you know what the terrible thing about that is? It's that kind of thing that made that movie one of the biggest box office successes
yes.
ever, despite the fact that it was a bad movie.
Right.
It's like Man of Steel. Man of Steel, I don't know how you feel about it. I thought it was a terrible movie. But I didn't know it was a terrible movie until I saw it.
Right.
So they already had my money. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so disappointed. I feel so bad. I feel like, oh God, this movie was just, it wasn't Superman. It was like the tone was all off. The shaky cam was terrible. The movie didn't have a storyline. Well, it did have a storyline. It had Batman's storyline, but I've already seen that. But that's the problem with movie making today. As long as it makes money, it's good. It doesn't matter if it's actually a good quality film, and that's why Zack Snyder is doing the JLA movie now.
Yeah. Because
he puts butts in the seats. He doesn't put brains in the seats.
No.
But you don't know if something's good until you buy it. It's not like a restaurant, you know.
Yeah.
The meals at a restaurant have to be good to keep the restaurant in business. Every restaurant's going to be really, really busy the first day because people are going to try it. And then they're going to tell their friends, don't go there. That place sucks. Movies don't work like that. If they have a great, amazing opening, whatever, and then people go back because it's got the Star Wars name on it, they're going to make money no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's why they handed us what they did. You know?
You think it'll beat Avatar? Box office wise?
I absolutely hope so.
I don't understand why Avatar made so much money. Was it just because the jacked up 3D prices at the time?
I think because people are stupid. I think that Avatar is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I love James Cameron. I really do. I think he's a very talented person, but it's one of the two movies I've walked out of.
Really?
And like asked for my money back. I was like, I can't do this. It's so seriously, Blue Cat people. You're seriously doing this to me right now?
I will give it credit. The 3D was the best 3D I've ever seen. And I think I stayed for that.
Right, but what's 3D? It's a gimmick.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
it's immersive.
Yeah, sure, but like does that mean that Captain EO is like a masterpiece?
No.
No, it's not. It's a gimmick, you know? It's a ride. I didn't pay to go to a ride. I paid to see a story, and the story was terrible. So, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. All I hope is that I don't care how many women there are. I don't care how many, I don't care who's who. I don't care how much it connects up to the EU. I'm going into this with a clean slate in my head, and I'm just hoping that these are going to be decent films. And I've never seen anything by J.J. Abrams that has been not good yet. Which is very hopeful. I think he's got a lot of really good, smart people in his corner. I think that the decisions that are being made as far as the EU goes to give Lawrence Kasdan the freedom to do, new and exciting things and not be saddled by the EU, it's all a good decision. Because let's face it, Lawrence Kasdan, he did Star Wars. It was awesome, but it's not his entire life.
Right.
He's not one of us. He hasn't been sitting down and, reading every single book that came out. And if they gave him this job and said, okay, write a script for the new trilogy, he doesn't have the time to read every goddamn EU novelization, comic book, video game, and whatever that showed up on Wikipedia. He doesn't have time to unify that entire universe and give us a cohesive story arc. So I think that what happened with the EU, I'm trying to bring it back. See,
I appreciate it. I do very much.
I think what happened with the EU as it relates to these new movies, because that's really what it's all about, is the best thing that they could have done. I don't think that anybody who's working on Star Wars right now has disdain for the product. They're not Michael Bay. They don't look at something and say, "Oh, I hate this, but I'm going to do it anyway." Yeah. Which is basically what happened with Transformers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm making a paycheck. I don't give a shit about the source material.
Right.
They're really taking care. I think that Kathleen Kennedy is she might not be the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, but she's taking a lot of cues from us. I think that there's a lot of people that sat down and listened, who are working on the new prequels, that actually sat down and listened to the red letter media, criticisms of the prequels, and really have been listening to us.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. But you can't move forward with that much baggage.
And thus they wiped the EU clean.
They did.
And from this point on, it's all fresh, all new. And on that note, I think I'm going to wrap up this conversation. Plus, I got to go tuck my son in a few minutes.
That's true. So
once again, Dan White coming back to the show, laying down what's what.
The correct opinion.
Exactly. I'm just going to stop recording, and that's it. So, stop. No. Stop. Cut the music. No. What did I say before? This is not a regular episode of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast. Thus, no music for you. I'm sorry. This is just bonus content. I hope you enjoyed that hour of me babbling along with my friend Dan White, talking Star Wars, goofing off. Just a little something extra for the loyal listeners of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast. If you have any opinion about what you just heard and you'd like to express it, let us know. Send me an email, theexpandedfandomverse@gmail.com, or visit the site, www.theexpandedfandomverse.com. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Google+. We're out there. Look for us. And remember, the Expanded Fandomverse is the only podcast about you, the Star Wars fan. So if you want to come on and babble about that galaxy far, far away, you are welcome to do so. Come on, send me an email and you can be on the show. I'm always looking for more guests. That's it for now. Bonus content is over. It's done. Tune in this weekend for episode 8 of the Expanded Fandomverse podcast that's coming up. But this is it for now. So long. That's it. Nothing. I got nothing more. That's it. I'm done. Goodbye. So long. Farewell. May the force be with you.